everyone, welcome to Rewind Light. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And today we're going to be talking about the third episode in Batman the Animated Series, at least the third one on the disc, Vince. And it's Nothing to Fear. This is the animated series intro to Scarecrow, Professor Jonathan Crane, who is all upset with the university that he used to work for because they kicked him out for being crazy.
So, I'd almost say they kicked him out for being kind of sadistic.
Okay, sadistically crazy. The first thing I want to mention is I really like the design of him, and I think he's one of the few, we'll talk about this later obviously, he's one of the few Season 4 designs I actually like, because they gave him the noose and stuff, and I thought that was kind of cool. But his original design is pretty cool too. I like the impossible comic book thing of he's wearing a mask, and when he moves his mouth, his entire face opens and shuts.
Yeah.
And then later on he takes off the mask, and you're like, that's physically impossible. But I love those sorts of things in a cartoon and a comic book.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. One of the things I said as we fired up this show is, said there is no way that his big noggin would fit into that narrow sock and look that way. And of course, it's not a sock; it's a sack. But still,
yeah, you're right.
It's really funny to me.
No way. This is not the really psychologically complicated Jonathan Crane that we've seen in other places, and that I want to say we kind of see even later on in the show. I think he gets more developed as it goes along, if memory serves. But here it's pretty much a straight-up revenge motive where he was always kind of psychotic and loved torturing things because he was obsessed with learning about the nature of fear. And he used that to capitalize on and make a living with, really. And then, it broke down because you can't really get away with things like that.
I sort of question how you could get that far.
I don't know either.
How could you possibly set up varying rooms and then essentially torture people? Granted, I guess maybe he can get that far because the people he's torturing with his fear toxin are not physically being hurt. They're just being scared.
But it's still an ethically ambiguous social experiment.
It seems like something you would see more in, say, like underground government programs than you would in, say, a university.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense in Batman Begins that he's able to get away with that kind of experimentation because people don't know that it's happening. It's kind of behind closed doors. I don't know how in that sort of setting he could get away with that. Now, because in Begins, at least he owned the asylum, so it's easier for him to get away with it. You know?
If he did it under wraps, like if he had his own special place that nobody ever went to, like maybe there was a deserted wing of the school.
Yeah.
Like maybe there was a huge fire and he kept patients there. He had people sign forms that this is, you were perfectly willing and you know what's going to happen. So if they did something like that, which of course they didn't.
No, not at all.
I suppose it could work, but they didn't take it far enough to make it work.
I feel like there's not a whole lot being said with his character as much as the episode is using him to try to say something about Batman.
Yeah. And also some of his background doesn't make sense. Like he's a psychologist who owns a chemical company, and like, how did that happen?
I don't know. I mean, there's a correlation in that he was in psychiatric medicine, so I mean, there's at least a correlation between psychology and chemicals. But I hear what you're saying.
I think it's interesting. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying that within the confines of this episode, it's almost like this is too much to actually fit into one episode.
Well, when you have 22 minutes and you're doing a show for kids that sort of works for adults and that sort of thing, you have to get so much information in that sometimes it's very, very difficult to extrapolate and to build on things, and this show does it better than most.
It would be impossible to, well, I suppose it wouldn't be impossible, but it would just take forever to get through any story arc if everything was a 3 or 4 part series, just to fit as much background on this villain in. And, I mean, it's very in keeping with traditional comics to have a villain that's sadistic. And here we go, I'm going to do things like rob stuff because that's what I do, because I'm a criminal. So
one little side note I wanted to mention is that he was a professor at this university and he gets kicked out, and so he's trying to get revenge on this university, which is exactly the same plot as the Breadmaster in the first season of The Tick.
Oh, that's really funny.
And the fact that both of these shows were aired on Fox and that happened, that was very, very shortly after this, I wonder if that wasn't a direct parody of this episode. I never noticed that. Yeah.
On the
Funny?
same note, speaking
Yeah.
of the revenge, I love the fact that he breaks into this vault, starts pouring gasoline everywhere, and tells these guys, or tells his henchmen, who are named Nigel and Anthony.
Yeah, I think Anthony, being that he's got kind of that thick Italian sort of accent, I buy that his name is Anthony. I don't buy that other guy's name is Nigel.
Hi, I'm Nigel. How you doing? But so they break into this vault. They say to the henchmen, stash as much money as you can, and whatever you can carry is yours. And then they proceed to try to burn the thing down. And then Batman breaks in and stops him. He's miraculously wearing a gas mask.
How did he know that there was going to be fear toxin there?
Scarecrow throws the fear toxin grenade, and then Batman walks in with a gas mask. And we're like,
Remember, he didn't know Scarecrow had fear toxin because A, this is the first time they've ever met, and B, later on he goes, I was hit by some sort of fear toxin. So, I mean, like, how would he know to have a gas mask ready?
It was really funny. So the best thing about that scene is that they cut to commercial after the entire thing's in flames, and Batman is sitting there with his fear toxin-y face.
Oh, yes.
And then the
classic cop-out right after the commercial.
So then the automated sprinkler system comes on and puts out the fire. Now, my question here is, why did the Scarecrow not take into consideration that his revenge would be thwarted by an automatic sprinkler system? It's insane. Well, he did get kicked out for being insane.
Yeah, the best thing about it is, as far as I can tell, Batman didn't even really need to be there for that part.
That's really funny.
Did he?
Like, they could have started.
Did Batman do something that started the sprinklers, or did they just start? I think they just started.
I think they just started. Because he was already sitting there all fear toxin-y on the ground going, no, I'm not a failure.
Oh, another fun little side note that I just remembered, and I don't know if you caught it, is that the security guard right before that scene, he's reading a Tiny Toons comic book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of fun.
That's neat.
Okay, what else? So, do you like where the episode goes with what Bruce Wayne's fear is?
I do like it quite a lot. I think that it's a little convenient in some of their exposition to try to set that up.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's very quickly said that Bruce Wayne is sullying the name of his family. And, okay, I'm not going to say they haven't established that in previous episodes. They just didn't establish it in this episode.
Yeah, and given that this is such a standalone series, I agree with you. It would have been nice if maybe the episode had opened with Bruce Wayne doing some sort of Playboy activity, be it having a couple of girls on each arm at a party, or making some kind of bad business decision, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not in there. You're right. We are just told that, so that's a little bit probably that could have been handled better. And also, it's not a big deal. It's a little convenient that the doctor that Crane is after happened to know Bruce Wayne's father, and he's not a medical doctor. Or is he?
I have no idea.
I honestly didn't really know. I guess they could have been running the same circles. I'm just saying that it's a little bit odd that the guy touches on exactly Bruce Wayne's worst fear right at the beginning, where he's like, you're selling your family name. It's almost as if Bruce Wayne had never thought about it till right then, and now it's his worst fear. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not his worst fear. Maybe it's just on his mind right now.
Yeah, that could be.
I'm just saying that's a little strange, but I do like that. That's actually that it's attempted to be dealt with a little bit, and I love how it ends. I think this has a great ending, where Batman's he's still on the fear toxin, and he's trying to thwart Scarecrow's plan, and they're up in yet another blimp. This show in blimps. He's fighting the henchmen, and then there's this really neat image of the hallucination of Bruce Wayne's father's head up in the sky, and he turns into a skeleton face. It looks really cool, and then Batman psychs himself out by saying, and this became
That's
famous.
The psychological term.
By the way, this became very famous. This was in all the commercials at the time. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. We saw that everywhere. There are posters that say I am vengeance. We get that a lot. And so, So what's neat is it's Batman psyching himself out. Saying, I'm not Bruce Wayne, I'm Batman. This is Bruce Wayne's fear. I am fear if I can make myself believe right now that I am Batman and I will not be afraid of this thing. And I like that he doesn't completely get over it either.
Yeah, I mean, because what's that old saying that they have? Like, bravery is not the absence of fear; it's like persevering in the face of it.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So,
which is what the Nolan films were all about.
And that's interesting. And I said something before we started the video, and Cap's like, "No, don't you do that!
Don't mess with my favorite movie."
Because I said it's becoming very popular that Batman's afraid of bats. That's his greatest fear. Well, really? It's his greatest fear. Like, as Cap said before we started this video, it works in Batman Begins because they establish it for him as a child as opposed to...
And that's exactly the reason he became Batman.
Yeah, so it's an origin thing. There is a progression. But within this episode, it wouldn't have worked, and I'm glad they went the... maybe it's the obvious way. I don't care. I do like the fact that he's afraid for his parents. Or afraid of his parents' disapproval.
Yeah.
Because he knows what he's doing is maybe kind of obsessive.
Yeah. and also keep in mind he's doing it in the name of his parents, and is this what they really would want for him? Of course, that's delved into greatly in Mask of the Phantasm, where although that handles it a little bit differently, doesn't it? Because there, it's my parents want me to do this, and I made a vow to them, and their spirits won't let me stop. It's almost the opposite of the message of this, actually.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
I had a thought, and it disappeared.
Well, something else I wanted to say about that line, if you don't mind, is I noticed this too at the beginning. One of Scarecrow's first lines is he says, "I am fear incarnate. I am terror itself. I am Scarecrow." That is. They bookend the show with this, like...
That's a good catch.
3-line bold statement professing what it is that they want to see themselves as. And Batman gets away with it in a way that Scarecrow doesn't.
Right.
Scarecrow is not fear itself. Batman is able to at least psych himself out as if he is. And what I like is that it's not also too simplistic of, well, he's actually really Batman and Bruce Wayne is just the mask he wears. It's a little more complicated than that. As imaged by as represented by the final scene in the cemetery, where Bruce Wayne is standing over his parents' graves, but his shadow is that of Batman.
There is... in this episode, they largely... I mean, it's not the last scene, of course. You just said what the last scene was.
Sure.
But the Scarecrow being hit with his own fear toxin, I think that's interesting because it almost shows that the Scarecrow is desperately trying to convince others, and he's enacting these crimes against others as a way of convincing himself, whereas Batman uses his innate self-assuredness to know that he is Batman. Where he says, listen, I'm being crazy, I need to just move on, I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman. Whereas the Scarecrow is forcing other people, or he's trying to bend other people to his will, but at the end of the day, he's just a criminal with a weapon.
Yeah, he can't convince himself because it's not really true. Whereas Batman is making a really good case for what he wants to believe himself as, and I think that that's very much evidenced, whether it makes sense or not, that Scarecrow's greatest fear would actually be a bat. That Scarecrow, calling himself fear incarnate, sees a bat at the end when he gets the fear toxin put on himself. And Batman, it's almost the episode saying that Batman's gotten closer to it than he has, but he uses it for good things, and that is why the universe more coalesces to Batman and lets it work. is kind of how I look at it.
So maybe Batman shouting out, I am vengeance, I am the night, he's not just convincing himself that his parents would approve, but rather he's convincing himself independently of his parents.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's how I read it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Just making sure we're on the same page.
Well, let's go ahead and rate it, shall we, Vince?
Sure.
What do you think?
Oh, I'll give this one a 4. I think it's kind of deep and interesting.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. I think the plot's a little thin, but, I don't know. Some of the plots have been thin for these last couple episodes, but
yeah,
this one, I think I like him coming to grips with being Batman independently of his parents. I like that idea. Thereby, I'll give it a 4.
Yeah. I know this is the third time in a row. I'm going to go with a 3 again. I think that each of the episodes that we've watched so far have been very different episodes.
I was rating on a 5-point scale in my head.
Yeah, I was like, you gave it perfect marks?
Yeah, let's go with a 3. I got used to doing it a different way in my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we're doing this on 4-point scale. Okay, so you're giving it a 3. I'm also giving it a 3. They're all very different, the ones we've watched so far. But I think that each of them is just above average in a different sort of way. So. Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks as always for watching, and we'll bring you another review of an episode of Batman the Animated Series next week. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
See you later.